Well, training for the ski patrol test at West Point, one of the things is you got to pretend that the front guy falls,
right,
or the toboggan guy falls, and you got a rope, and the rear guy's got to stop the toboggan with the rope. So there's no one in the front, and then you were the victim.
right.
So I'm the victim, and all of a sudden Peasley's going to stop the toboggan, and he pulls up next to me. He goes, "Hey, Whips!" And he throws me the rope. So I'm on a runaway toboggan down the West Point ski slope.
Eric Whipple, Whips, welcome to the podcast.
Paul, thanks so much for letting me be on this thing.
It's great to have
Chris
you here.
Pump can do it. I can do it.
Hey, that's, when a bar is set so we can all clear it, we appreciate the one who did it, right?
I just don't know how much I laughed during that podcast. And then the B4 Buffaloes, that was a phenomenal podcast too.
It was a really enjoyable one to do. And I'm really delighted that you're here because you're from C4. That was my plebe company. You were right around the corner with Finley and all those guys in C4. So we used to see you guys cutting through our hallways.
All the time.
Like we were close to you guys, just in terms of we were always shouting out and saying, hey.
Oh, who did you mention? Hohenstein.
Yeah, Tom.
Tom. He was in my B squad.
Okay.
And then I'd see him all. Just one of the nicest men.
Yeah. He was a roommate of mine. Still to this day says I shaved a few points off of his grade point average because I was always in there yakking all the time. But I was a podcaster in the making. What could I say?
Hey, it's awesome.
So you're in Lincoln, Nebraska.
I am.
Right. We were just talking ahead of time. You have the CNQ 86 license plate for a little bit, which is we always have to track down who has that. But you donated back. Well, why did you have to give it back to the state?
Well, my wife passed away, and I just transferred the title of her car over to my daughter,
right,
Emily. And when I did that, you couldn't keep the veteran plate on there. And Jerry Schwartz had always wanted the CNQ 86, and I said, "Hey Jerry, I put it back in the pool, so hopefully he gets it."
Jerry was desirous of that,
That's right.
Jerry's a stern man. He likes things done his way. So he said he wanted the Nebraska CNQ 86 plate.
That's right. He would give me trouble because I had it, and that,
we're gonna have to follow up with Jerry to see if he has it, because if he doesn't, we're gonna,
I need to. I definitely need to. So
we'll have to give him a 4C.
That's right.
And so walk us through what took you to Lincoln.
I lived in St. Louis. My stepdad traveled National 3M. We got moved a lot. And I started pursuing like West Point in St. Louis. My mom worked for McDonnell Douglas Flight Test, and she knew all the test pilots. And that sent me on a track I saw the Thunderbirds when I was like 12 years old. That sent me on a track I want to go to the Air Force Academy. Well, then end of sophomore year, I moved to Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
And then did not get selected by Air Force Academy, but along the way, I'd met some West Pointers and went to West Point from Denver, Colorado.
When I got out of the Army, Aurora is your hometown.
Aurora, Colorado was my town, was where I finished high school. That's what's listed.
Now, I live in Denver as part of my thing, so I know the area. Yep. Aurora is a really big place, right?
It is. I went to a school about 2,300.
Yeah.
And at the end of my junior year, got selected class president. Because Paul, like you, I like to chat. Okay, I like to have a conversation once in a while. And hey, I roomed with Tom Zoka. Okay, Starman. So I'd get reprimanded. He'd come out of a engineering test. Goes, "Whips, wasn't that easy?" I'd say, "Tom."
That's what it was like room with Hohenstein. He'd come out and say, "Yeah, look at all my grades, and just sit there and don't talk because I got to study."
That's right. Or if you room with Tom Graves, General Tom Graves, you learn after about a month he's got a photographic memory, because Tom would sit there and just lean and he'd just be reading, and he'd be done, close the books, and I'm over next to him sweating, trying to figure out what the same subject, So anyway,
Isn't that maddening? Those guys, Jim Crawford, my company, these guys, they basically memorize these things and then walk in and take the test.
Did you say Jim Crawford?
Yeah.
Roommate when I was first semester of B1.
Now, is it true he told jokes all the time? They made him tell jokes?
What's that?
Is it true they made him tell jokes every day?
All the time at the tables. He's one of the funniest guys and one of the nicest, brightest men I've ever met, man. And I was with Steve Whitmarsh and him both.
Oh, so sure, yeah.
We were roommates, so that was fun. But no, I went to West Point.
Jim was in my company, good friend. He's now quite a distinguished fellow. He's a NASA scientist, which wouldn't surprise any of us, right?
That was a wonderful podcast that he did. I just, and his rationale for going field artillery, loved it. I mean, it was. I get to shoot bullets, downrange, bound.
So, other than being a class president, what Aurora, Colorado sports?
I played football. I wrestled very poorly. Did the golf team once. We did that in St. Louis, but mainly football and wrestling.
Okay.
And then class president. I was only there for 2 years, and then of course went to West Point in '82.
Yeah. Now you were on the ski patrol at the academy. Was skiing part of your life?
Now, I learned to ski in Colorado.
Yeah.
Back in the day, we'd drive up to Breckenridge, ski all day, drive back. $16 lift tickets.
Right on.
And we were from the poor side of the track, so you took the Volkswagen Rabbit, diesel Rabbit up the hill, and Bojo's Pizza in Idaho Springs.
Got it. Yeah.
Back in the day when you put a little napkin on the wall or whatever. But when you buy pizza by the pound, I'm all for it.
Right. You go with that Bojo's, you're going in big.
That's right.
That's great.
That's
yeah.
right.
What a great place to learn to ski. Good for you.
It was great. And then I put that on my papers at West Point, that I was a skier. And sophomore year, Mark Peasley, myself, a couple others got selected by this full bird colonel who was in the dean's office because we were skiers and he was a big skier. So then Mark Peasley and I joined the ski patrol sophomore year.
That's different than the ski club, right?
It's different than ski club. Ski club, they just went on trips and stuff. Right. Ski patrol, you actually were on duty at the West Point ski slope.
Right.
And my famous story there. Now, Mark retired as a Green Beret. He's a stud, special forces guy. His son's now the same thing. Well, training for the ski patrol test at West Point, one of the things is you got to pretend that the front guy falls,
right,
or the toboggan guy falls, and you got a rope, and the rear guy's got to stop the toboggan with the rope. So there's no one in the front, and then you were the victim.
Right.
So I'm the victim, and all of a sudden Peasley's going to stop the toboggan. And he pulls up next to me. He goes, "Hey, Whips." And he throws me the rope. So I'm on a runaway toboggan down the West Point ski slope. And I'm going, you remember those SF guys that would pop the artillery simulators at Buckner while it's on the other guy's belt? They do crazy stuff. Peasley, I never forget that. So,
well, it ended good. So here anyway.
Yeah. And then we went up to some White Hunter Mountain or something. I don't know where it was. We took our actual test with the official ski patrol people.
Okay.
And I was a 2-year skier by then, or 3. Not the greatest. I just had no fear. So you have to do this mogul test coming down this black diamond. And I get about 50 yards from the end of it, catch a tip, and it's somersaults. Everything's flying. Goggles are gone. I slide up right to the base of the instructor. And I said, "How'd I do?" He goes, "You're doing it again, Whipple." I said, "Okay." But we ended up passing. We had a great time. That was fun for 3 years. We got to do that.
Good. Well, that shows a lot of skill if you learned in Colorado the last 2 years of high school, and then you're able to do that. So we
went in there. So Berthoud Pass is where I learned. And they had the tow rope. Remember those old tow ropes they had?
Yeah. Good for
Colorado was awesome. Still have a lot of family out there, but a lot of them are in the St. Louis area. But when I got out of the Army, I worked for my stepdad. He had an advertising company by then, and I worked sales with him for about 11 months. The reason I did that, I got out of the Army 3 weeks before Desert Shield started.
Right.
It was just timing, and a lot of people were doing early outs. We can talk about that if you want. But I'm going, "Are you kidding me?" And they send you a notice. "Hey, we can call you back at any time." Well, it was difficult to interview corporation-wise, but so I finally interviewed out in San Francisco, one of those headhunter deals.
Right.
Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, Pepsi Cola, all these Hallmark cards. Well, I thought, man, pharmaceuticals, that's pretty interesting to me. Well, then I'm remodeling my mom's bathroom downstairs. I'm covered with drywall. A headhunter calls me from downtown Denver because I'd called them and said, hey, here's what I'm looking for.
Right.
And they said, hey, got a guy that wants you to live with Ciba-Geigy Pharmaceuticals. The guy didn't have my resume. His name was Dick Whitfield. Great mentor of mine.
Mm-hmm.
He meets me at a Perkins restaurant. Pharmaceuticals like to eat. They meet you at restaurants for your interviews, right? I get there. I hand him my resume. First time he'd seen it. He goes, oh, a West Pointer. That's our taxpayer dollars going to good stuff. I said, Dick, I thank you every single day for paying for my $400,000 education. And he goes, and he kept throwing stuff at me, and I just throw it right back at him, right? And about 3 months later, I said, Dick, why'd you hire me? He goes, Eric, you remember when I dogged you about your college? I dogged you about I knew you could go toe-to-toe with a cardiologist.
There you go.
The difference between a cardiologist and God is God knows he's not a cardiologist, right? And that was the attitude back then. Right. And that's why he hired me.
You learned that on that slope when you did that yard sale all the way down.
When I did the somersault,
right?
I remember Dick going, hey, Whips, it's in the Denver district, but the location's Grand Island, Nebraska. I said, Dick, it's funny you mentioned Grand Island, Nebraska. I have always wanted to live in Grand Island, Nebraska. And I go, by the way, where is that? And where's it located? It was like 8 hours from Denver, right? But I was in his district, and that's where I went for 2 years. You go from having an infantry company, 112 men around you all the time, to being you by yourself in a car, driving all of western Nebraska and northern Kansas. You learn how to adapt, right? It's a new adjustment, a big transition.
It's a big
I was there for 2 years, moved to Lincoln, covered a lunch for a drug rep, and met my wife, Lori. I dated her for 4 months, asked her to marry me, and we had a 29-year run before she passed away, unfortunately, a couple of years ago. But
sorry to hear it. Yeah,
cancer. Well, I only bring it up because it's going to come out eventually. But
sure.
I went to West Point totally naive. My dad was maybe in the Navy for a couple of years. My stepdad was in the Air Force. Never around the military much, except some of those flight test pilots I met.
Right.
But I get there, and I go, Dad, I can't go somewhere I've never seen. So it was like April or May, early May. And I flew out to New York with my stepdad, looked at the pretty campus going, oh, this is pretty.
This will be nice.
And then I sent in my acceptance letter. I was so late turning it in. I didn't have a name on my T-shirt when I arrived at Beast Barracks.
Right.
So I was one of those
guys.
That
big grassy part in front of the barracks and said, I bet you I could picnic there.
That's right. I could have just, this is great. This is lovely. But then you get on the other side of the wall, you're going, what the heck am I doing here?
Because I had no idea. That shock of Beast Barracks, how did you process that? Because we all had our own little internal.
Well, the beauty of it, I had Kurt Gutierrez, Craig McLeod. Kurt was prepster, I think, football player.
Yeah.
Craig McLeod, Tom. We had quite a few guys in there. Brian Snell, all these guys in Beast, and then we had. It was just a great platoon, and it was, cooperate and graduate. The guys that you were with taught you stuff. When I woke up at 4:30 in the morning, hearing George Patton going through the building, I'm going, what the hell have I done? Remember that? They used to play the Patton speech in Beast. I'm going, and then what is it, like 3 days into Beast, you go up to that camp area by Fort, it's by the ski slope, but we had that bivouac area where you did the relays. You remember all that stuff?
Yeah.
We did it we were first company. So we were Eisenhower statue stands. That's where our squad would line up in platoon, first co, which led me to B1 as a plebe.
Yeah.
So that I would say my claim to fame in Beast was I got to fireman carry Richard Hatch during the relays.
There you go.
Rich was one of the nicest guys. But it was all new to me. I mean,
but a pretty big fella. I mean, to have fireman's carrying, that's pretty.
He was thinner back then. He wore his clothes.
We all might have been a little fitter. We all might have been a little easier to fireman's carry back.
Yeah, everybody goes, hey, you were in the Army? Yeah, about 40 pounds ago. But no, it was good. I mean, the Beast Barracks was, I knew I wasn't going to quit, if at all possible. And Lake Frederick, the rainstorms we had out there, right? I didn't own any Ziploc bags. So my bugle notes to this day, have pages stuck into it.
Yeah.
And when you go to reorg week with bugle notes that you can't get to every page you got to, B1 was not the place to be.
That's a tough company. Talk about that.
It was a, I mean, I was with, let's see, Charlotte was there, Darcy Dirks, bunch of others. It was Dave Hudock. He was the prior service guy that was with us. And the story who shared the story about Pat Kilroy repelling.
Oh, that was the B4 guys that were talking about John McCoe's birthday. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, that one there, Dave Hudock did that from the 6th floor.
He was kind of well known. I mean, I remember him, even though he was never in a company, because he was
prior service, just a great guy, but older than me, you know. And I was 17 when I went in. Yeah. I turned 18 in a foxhole shooting an M16 in basic training. You know, 19 driving a tank at Fort Knox, 20 being a drill cadet, and 21 I turned doing basic training.
Right,
at, the Beast. So it's weird how that. But I was going to tell you the reason. You get this brotherhood, and after the first year, reorg week, we went to 7th Co for Camp Buckner. Well, there you got Jimmy DiOrio, Tom Zoka, Mark Peasley, Phil Biggs.
So that's a company of characters, huh?
Oh my gosh! And I was the big rig driver. Okay, I was one of the 2.5 ton drivers, right? Deuce and halves, whatever. Tommy Graves. You name it, Pat Kilroy, all these guys were out there. And so hey, what's your name? Zokes is like, well, I'm Eric Whipple. Whips. We're going to call you Whips, okay?
There it is.
Whips, the big rig driver. And they started giving me crap, right? And so they load up in the deuce and half. And I think we're down there by the Soup's house, you know, in Trophy Point. And I just start hitting the brakes like every 2 feet, just shaking them up back there. I go, that'll teach you, you know. But we became the best of friends, right? Sure. My wife passes away, and 11 of these guys show up to the funeral.
Oh, wow.
Tom Graves comes from Italy. Zoka and his wife were the first ones in from Alabama. She died on a Sunday. They were there by Thursday. First ones in. You know, all these guys show. Peter Feeney. They just start showing up, and I had no idea that was going to happen.
Yeah.
The brotherhood is strong. The sisterhood is strong.
Yeah, very strong.
I get a call from Steve Cannon the day after she passed. I said, Steve, listen, man, I didn't ask permission, but I picked Johnny Mac Soldiers Fund as the memorial because she loved that organization.
Right.
Oh, Whips. No. I'm not calling you about that. I just wanted to let you know the board got together and we're going to name a scholarship in honor of Lori. And I was like, oh, man.
There you go.
Well, they fulfilled that in June. Flew my daughter. We all went out there, and they flew these 2 young ladies from Lincoln, Nebraska out there.
Oh, wow.
Turns out my daughter teaches at the high school this one young lady was student teaching at. And it's just a small world. You can't write this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But to see the Jimmy DiOrio shows up. I'm standing there next to my wife's casket, my daughter. Here comes Stan Olson and Jimmy D.
Yeah.
And you got to be kidding. Hadn't seen Jim in probably 9-10 years. We roomed together a couple of times at West Point.
Yeah.
But that just, I mean, I always knew it. We were always tight. Facebook's been a blessing because you get to talk to people and reconnect with people. From soldiers you served with to whatever. But I kind of hoped that would happen at West Point. It started when the colonel sponsored Mark Peasley and I. And then Peter Feeney got invited for lunch.
What happened there? Which colonel was that?
Colonel John C. Cornelson is his name. He was in director of operations in the dean's office area. I don't know what exactly title, but his wife was named Janet Cornelson, passed away a few years ago of Alzheimer's. A bunch of us went to her funeral at West Point. But Colonel Cornelson wanted skiers. Well, we'd say, hey, we call her mom and him sir. And he was one of these guys, scare the hell out of you just looking at you, right? He just, that stern, he's class of 61, great guy. But we ended up with about 12 of us 3 years later that they sponsored, right? A full bird colonel had a little more money than a captain sponsor.
Absolutely. Well chosen, right?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, I think Ledoux, Steve Zidane, all these guys, Pat Conley, all these guys got invited up. We'd say, hey, Mom, do you mind if there's a kid looking for a free meal at the barracks? Can we bring him up tonight? Well, Hugh Cornelson was 4 years old, and Tom Cornelson was like 9 or 10. He's class of 94. Okay. And Tom passed away, unfortunately, at a lung issue. He got medically discharged out of Benning. Right. But great guy. He's president. I thought he was president of his class. No, Mark Peasley's wife is president of class of 94. But we got to know these kids, right? See them grow up, and now Hugh Colby's, 30? You know, it's just crazy how time flies. But we were lucky to have Colonel Cornelson. They'd have the General Scott over for dinner, and we would play games. Dusty and General Scott, and I think we were yearlings or cows. I think it was cow year, because Peter Feeney got to know him really well. We played charades with him, and Peter Feeney was on the winning team with General Scott.
Really?
But General Scott was one of the neatest guys, and
he was beloved, right? I remember.
What's that?
We all loved him.
Oh, he was phenomenal. But I got to know him really well at the get-togethers up there at the Cornelsons.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this story, but General Scott's class ring, I don't know if he told all of us as cadets or just up there.
I don't remember it. Run us through it.
He had a green emerald stone, right? And then I think on some football game, it fell out, right? And the stone fell out. So he took a green toothbrush and melted it into the ring, and he buffed it up, and it was good as new, according to him. When he was a full bird colonel, or maybe a 1-star general, he had to get it resized, sent it back to Balfour. They noticed it wasn't a real stone and took the toothbrush out and put in a real stone. Made him angry. Oh, he was so mad. But he tells a story. I'm going, this guy's just like us. You know, as an older guy now, you know,
it was.
I remember repelling his
expression with the toothbrush, and you took it out.
Yeah, I was like, "What are you doing here?" You know, the little things that we do at the academy. That are, you know, you brought up the sponsor would wait, but B1. I got 8 and 4 for smiling. Okay, unprofessional conduct, unbecoming, or whatever it was. I had just passed a calculus. I got an A on a calculus test, and I was fired up, man. And so I'm pinging back, and I'm smiling ear to ear, just thinking, man, I got me a damn A. You know, it's great. And this 4th class systems officer saw me. You see it in the movies. Never thought I'd see it in real life.
Right.
But you go into the room, and the candles are lit, the frost sabers on the deal, and I'm going, what? These dudes were nuts, okay? So I'm like, and I'm sitting, you know, fist away from the chair, not moving at all, and they're yelling at me to quit moving. Quit moving. Quit. One guy's yelling at you. The other guy gives you trial. 8 and 4. So fast forward.
This is your B1.
B1 year, right? Whitmarsh is my witness, because we've been a couple times out there.
For smiling over getting an A on a test.
Just for smiling. Unbecoming of a cadet, whatever, new cadet, or whatever we were being at. I get to the I wish I could remember his name. Big African-American major that was an OIC a lot. I think he was infantry, but he's inspecting us on my first time on the air. It's a Friday night, Friday afternoon. Gets to me, son, what are you on the area for? Sir, I'm on the area for smiling. Are you messing with me? That's what he said to me. He was about to chew my butt. The firstie with the clipboard leans over and goes, well, I'll be darned. You're here for smiling. And he moved on. He couldn't believe it. I got 4 hours.
That large man was the tactical officer for my battalion in 3rd Regiment.
What was his name?
I can't. It'll come to me. But he was a Vietnam vet.
Yes.
And he was famous for having been in some hand-to-hand fights, and because of his size, it was a bit of a legend. Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah.
Very, very squared away. Very.
A great officer. That was one of my first infantry. It was the infantry officer, I think.
Yeah.
That was my first. I'm going, you know, the infantry. I think I kind of like that. This guy was sharp, and he had a sense of humor.
That was an inspiration. Yeah.
Yeah. It started. Then the French department. Every one of them were infantry officers, and I I went houseplanting animals, and I would a field of study in French and Portuguese. Is what I did.
What got you to that? That's a very interesting choice. What got you?
Lack of confidence that I could do science and engineering.
Yeah.
Even though hindsight, I should have done science and engineering. I did. I mean, I was a 2.4, maybe 3. I don't know what the heck I was 2.0.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on academic restriction a lot, but I too like to talk. And no one taught me how to study.
You did yourself a solid by not going science. You did good.
But I don't. Here's my proof of that. Cal year, I'm going to go to flight school, right?
Yeah.
Michael Bingham is my TAC officer.
Yeah.
Eric, I don't reckon you're going to be going to flight school with the grades you're having right now. I was passing solids by 6 points. I had a D-, going into the final 40% weighting. And so Paul, I go in there and the captain goes, "I'll see you in summer school." "No, you won't, sir. I'm gonna fix this."
Thank you for the vote of confidence.
2 weeks to the end of the year, right? I was bound for staff. I just knew it, but I thought it was probability and statistics that was going to get me there, not solids. So I go
solids.
Now, Paul, I don't know if you know this, but they've got this place in Mahan Hall called Engineering Labs, and they've got the books that had the homework assignments in there, right? And all the problems are worked out with the answers, including the double answer.
Yeah.
I didn't know
of this place.
I did not know of this place. Okay. So I go in there and I write every homework that I was supposed to do during the semester down in about a 2-day period. I wrote every one of them. And then God bless Mike Henderson. I don't know if you ever knew Mike. He's in DC area, I think now. But he was in C4. I go, "Mike, if I didn't know how to do a problem, I'd go, 'Hey, Mike, can you show me how to do?' 'Oh, Eric, no problem.'" And I tapped everyone I knew. And they taught me solids in a 2-week period. I got a B+ on the exam, a C+ for the class, and I went to flight school that summer.
Good for you. Look at that.
Well, it was just, and that's going, this engineering stuff is how my mind thinks, actually. But I didn't know how to study. And ever since then, I did well in class because you do a little bit each day and you spec it and dump it and move on. But
how did you do in French and Portuguese? Were you?
Mark Peasley is a witness here too. We had Professor Violet. And man, that guy was 78 years old, I think, at the time.
Right.
John Cornelson, the colonel, full-bird colonel, he retired full-bird. He was full-bird there. But when he retired from the military, in 1961, he had Professor Violet for French. Okay? And he came to West Point like our plebe year.
Right.
Started his assignment. He's in the officer club, and he hears Professor Violet's voice. And he was, "Eric, the little hair I had left stood up on the back of my head," because he used to haze him during class.
Yeah.
But I think Professor Violet trained horse cavalry in Fort Robinson, Nebraska, back in World War I, whatever. But he's got a history. But he'd ride on the Cadet Whipple. You must articulate, So it was all fine. I enjoyed French. I took it in high school a couple years. I get to first year.
Yeah.
I'm translating Dien Bien Phu, the Vietnam battles, from French into English so I could understand them. And I'd have to give presentations in French. And it's like, what did I do?
Yeah, that's taking it up a notch. Right.
There was Major Murdoch, I think McInerney. They were all infantry officers, foreign liaison officers, foreign languages. I took French. First assignment, Germany. 3.5 years. I could speak German, no problem. I'm more guttural than I am romantic, I guess, in my voice. But it was like, I had one French soldier assigned to us on a training exercise.
Right.
I could teach him how to dig a hole in French. I could give him orders in French. That's all I used it for. But German, I'm
Would you be seconded to the Foreign Legion at any moment? You could tell them how to dig holes.
That's right. That's right. Pick up that rifle, But
4 years,
I
4 years of study got you.
What's that?
4 years of study got you to where you could.
That's right. To where I could tell a guy to dig a foxhole. Yeah, it was crazy. But no, I just picked it because, Portuguese was the greatest class ever. I think Greg Fenton had a language, and he went to Brazil. I think
Right.
during our senior year or junior year or something with the Portuguese club.
Right.
But Jimmy D, having Portuguese with Jimmy D in class, Jimmy DiOrio.
Ted Hanley was with you all
Yes.
famously. So
Yes.
yeah, because we used
Yeah.
to learn phrases from Ted, and so we were all walking around speaking in
Cadetchi Whipple,
Cadet
Michael Bain, Como vai você? You know,
to this day, we actually call him Cadet Hanley because so.
you know, the greatest thing about that was Jimmy D. Well, okay, all these guys, I'm the big rig driver. We get out to Camp Buckner, and we become the best of friends. Do you remember the movie that was showing at Buckner that year was Flashdance?
Yes, I do.
Okay. We would go back and reenact that in the barracks. You know,
Of course we would.
Canteens and do all, but we became so close, and I don't know why. Captain Bingham was our TAC officer, you know, and we'd get busted doing stupid stuff. I won't share the stories.
Well, I was in C4 as a plebe, so I know all the characters that you were with. Dave Alberga,
Oh yeah,
Fussner, all those guys
yes.
were cows for us. And then you ended up becoming Colonel Bingham, a captain at the time.
Yep.
Dave Baum in my company married his daughter. So
yes, that was a great podcast.
Yeah,
he was one of the nicest men, and I think if we got to it later, but one of the most impactful. Remember the Thursday night honor sessions you'd have, or whatever. Michael Bingham's got all the firsties down there, and he's talking to us. He tells his story about Vietnam, and when he's a enlisted guy, he gets a battlefield commission because the platoon leader was shot. And he goes, "My biggest fear was having to pick a point man," and he builds his story up.
Yeah,
but he's now the lieutenant. Hey, sir, I'll take it. Never had to pick a point man. And his point was, these guys are going to make you mad, piss you off. You're going to get them out of jail, but they will die for you. And that's what you need to remember. You're taking care of the soldier. They'll take care of you.
Yeah.
And that's your number one mission. I took that. I think it was maybe yearling year or junior year that he taught that. And I never forgot it. And he was really good friends with Colonel Cornelson. So we got to know him a little bit. But the funniest, and he took care of me getting me to flight school. You know, he kicked me in the butt when I needed to. But just a great, great man.
But you ended up sticking with infantry.
I did. Well, no. Okay, I wanted to go to flight school, but at our time, our year, there were 101 of us physically qualified. I think they took 98.
You do the flight physical and all that?
Yeah, the flight physical, we had to be physically qualified, but then they rank you academically.
Yes,
right?
they do.
And my stellar performance in solids and a few other classes led me to be on the 101 rank out of the total. Right?
Really?
I was like 90. I think I was like one person away from being selected.
No kidding.
6 weeks of flight school with the TH-55 at Fort
Right. As a cadet, you could go down and do that, right?
Yeah, I'm not okay. We've proven that I'm not the academic genius that, or wasn't disciplined in the study factor. I had a good time, and I passed my classes, and I was still a lieutenant, right?
Yeah.
We go down to flight school. Stan Olson, a bunch of guys I can't remember. The playwright that died in Desert Storm.
Tommy Bates.
Tommy Bates was with us. I was in the same stick as him at flight
really?
school.
Okay.
We'd be in the building waiting to go fly.
Yeah.
And he'd be writing a play.
Yes.
He'd be writing a story. Just a brilliant, brilliant guy.
Right.
We'd have classes in the morning, fly in the afternoon, or fly in the morning, classes in the afternoon. Or vice versa.
Yeah.
Well, we studied the classes, but our number one goal was to get to the O Club as soon as we could. Have a little fun.
Tended to weigh heavily on all, regardless of branch choice.
Right. And that seemed to be a common theme. Well,
at least
doing this thing, well, I'm these Vietnam veteran pilots, they were just unbelievable. One guy had I don't know how many thousands of hours flying for Delta, and then he was a Vietnam helicopter pilot, became an instructor here in retirement, and they put suction cups on the gauges your first few flights because they don't want you looking here, they want you looking out here. Well, I must have skipped the page that said you clear when we're soloing basically with the guy next to you. You clear at 750 meters or feet or whatever the heck it was. I thought you cleared at the two silos that were right there at the end of the runway. There were these farm silos. In the first flight, I got to, it's like 500 feet. I go, clear right. What in the heck? And he just started chewing me for the whole hour. You don't clear to 750 feet. I'm going, I need to look that up in the book. Because the next day the wind had shifted and there was no silo, right? So I was just going off what he'd done the 5 days before.
Right.
So I started studying a little better there. But that was the fun.
Well, if you went back to that mechanics lab and got all the answers there, you'd gone back through it. You'd have got it.
Yeah. So anyway, I think things happen for a reason. I was meant to be an infantry officer, and I loved it. I mean, it was.
So where did you end up getting stationed?
Well, you do the Fort Benning run. You do the airborne school, officer basic course, Ranger school, which changed my life. And then I went to Germany. I was in 1st Armored Division.
Okay.
Well, Joe Martin was right down the road at Ansbach. I was at Illesheim. He was the first of the 37th Armor. There was a Colonel Melton, his father-in-law. And then Colonel Gavitt was my battalion commander. They were sister battalions. So we'd see each other at dining inns or whatever we did. But Joe was right down the road, and a bunch of us were there. But Illesheim, Germany, where I started, we finished in Vilseck. All of our units moved to Vilseck. But 1st Armored Division, I was a rifle platoon leader for 12 months. Had a real jerk of a company commander. Just, I had one company commander, and then he left after about 3 months, and I had another one. But he just wasn't, it wasn't, not to be a West Pointer, you have to be a West Pointer, but he just abused soldiers.
Right.
And we don't need to get into that. But it was one of those things where he was going to Article 15 every one of the people that were up. We were watching this mount attack that had their Kevlars on. We had our Kevlars on for 2 days. I mean, I said, hey, take your Kevlars off, watch this attack and learn something.
Right.
Just taking a little break. He had his binos down there checking it out, who had them, because he'd given orders, don't take Kevlars off. Well, the 1st platoon sergeant and me, the 2nd platoon leader, I said, well, sir, you can put my name down first. I'll take the court martial.
Right.
Because I wanted him to explain why 40 soldiers are getting Article 15s for something crazy, right?
For helmet discipline, yeah.
Right. Well, then I got my EIB that year. There's like Steve Warnock and myself and maybe one other officer got the EIB that year. Did the 12-mile march, finish it. I mean, out of 900 people, there were maybe 40 of us that got it.
Yep.
The next day, the major comes up, hey, Lieutenant, Major Fuller, retired general, called me every day the week my wife was in the hospital at the end of her life, and really good friends. He goes, hey, Whips, got some bad news. You guys got to do the 12-mile road march again. Staff sergeant from the S3 shop marked it short. It was like 3/4 of a mile short. So the second day in a row, we go out and we run 12 miles again. It was just funny. It's like, just the things you
Army, right? Rather than,
you can't
got to go do it again. Like that last 3/4 of a mile was going to make the difference.
And then I found out I could just go buy one at the PX. It was right there at the clothing sales. I could have just got the badge.
The easy way.
No, but
and were you a mechanized platoon leader? Was that
I was mechanized. Yeah, 1st Armored Division mechanized 113s. They transitioned to Bradleys shortly after I left.
Okay, so you did 113.
We were in the middle of that when all the stuff started happening.
Right.
But I was a rifle platoon leader. Then the battalion commander made me the company executive officer because I could.
With that same unpleasant captain?
That same guy.
Okay, there you go.
Because the colonel knew that this guy wasn't performing, but I would keep I basically ran the company, not if you will.
Now, did that impact your performance? Did he kind of goof you on your ratings and all that?
No.
Because sometimes those guys get a little
crazy. Right? Are we ending in like 10 minutes? Because I could take you up your time here. But Hohenfels, Germany, right?
Yeah.
We're at this operation, and that's our NTC of Germany, right? We go out there and they have the miles equipment, and we're doing all this stuff. Well, it was the same job every day. You follow the leader down the road, you get shot, the Op 4's in there. I was like, man, and this guy was such a knucklehead. 3rd platoon's leading. I'm 2nd platoon. I didn't bother to put the overlay on. All I knew is we're going to attack Old Baldy. We'll probably die 3/4 of a mile down the road because everyone does the same thing over and over. And I remember in Ranger School, the worst plan executed violently will most likely be better than the best plan
Right.
that you execute half-assed.
Poorly executed, for sure. Yeah.
Right. And so we're moving out. Bucky Dent's leading the 3rd platoon. We get like I don't know, 600 yards. He throws a track. A black 6 is blue 6. I've thrown a track. Roger, red 6, you're now the lead platoon. That was me. I don't even have the overlay. I pull up next to Bucky's deal. I said, where are we going? He points it out. I do a quick recon. I said, screw this. We're not going that road. I'm going on the other side of the ridgeline, and I'm going to cross the field as fast as I can. And there's a trail, a road that goes up the backside. We're going to come in from behind. I said, I told my platoon, follow me, do not slow down, and don't answer the phone. Don't get on commo. We did it. Red 6, you're going the wrong way. He just yelling at me the whole time, right? And I knew he was losing his junk. I get all the way across that field. It's March. It's snowing. It wasn't a road. It was like a trail that barely fit a 113. I had about a foot on either side. I thought, I've just killed my soldiers. We're going up this, and I had this great driver. We go up the backside, and every platoon follows me.
Right.
Like the whole company follows me. We dismount. The enemy has no idea we're there. We fight across, and we just kick the crap out of them. I missed one tank that was whole defilade.
Right.
To the right. But then all of a sudden, we're fighting for an hour and a half, all this stuff. A helicopter lands. It's got general flag on it. The tank commander's out there. This captain, the biggest jerk I told you about, he goes, that general goes, that is what I call executing a mission. That was the best attack I've ever seen. That's what we need to have. And he takes full credit for it.
Of course.
Right there in front of me. It's like,
thank you, sir.
Oh, sir, we wanted to, yeah.
Thank you, sir. I've named that flanking maneuver after myself.
He gave me an ARCOM, I think, for that. He did finally write it up. It was just funny. I just laughed at him. But then that's when I learned, always make friends with the armor lieutenants, right?
Yeah.
We are soaking wet, freezing. I said, hey, bud, could you turn on your M1 Abrams? We're going to set a clothesline out here. We stripped down, down to our birthday suits, and he cranks that turbine, and we're dry,
Always make friends with an armor lieutenant. That is that right there. That's good advice. You go back in time to give yourself. Always make friends with an armor.
Two things I always wish I'd have done. I'd always wish I'd gone down to see Joe Martin and those guys and say, Joe, teach me what these tables are that you guys shoot. Because when they go to qualify, they're doing these gunnery tables, and it's intense stuff. I mean, I did a CalFex range where I was the OIC, maneuvering and controlling it. But I always wanted to know how they did it and what they did.
Absolutely.
I wish I'd have done it. But they're kind of rude, though. They won't let you tour their tank. Right? You're just a grunt. Do not. You take your shoes off like Mr. Rogers and put their tennis shoes on and climb down in.
If you have a turban like that, you feel like you're a bit special. I get it.
That's right. Tom Zolko was in 16th Engineers in Nuremberg, and we've always been the best of friends, right? And Tom his platoon or company would support our battalion, right?
Yeah.
We did this Op 4 mission, and I get called up there, and Ed Harris was the company commander now, just a great guy, 82nd Airborne guy, class of 83, phenomenal dude. Just he'd do 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups every night before he'd go to bed. Deployed or not, this dude was doing push-up. Just an inspiration. I'm the XO, so I'm in charge of all obstacles. Tom Zolko goes, Whips, what do you want? I go, what do you got? I'll give you 2 bulldozers. He goes, but one recommendation, Eric, do not leave the bulldozers alone. They will go back to the barn. If you keep them isolated, they're going to go back to the barn. And sure enough, we did all this whole defilade, and I had a sergeant with each one of these bulldozer guys. Those are great memories of training and doing that.
Yeah.
My other big memory of Hohenfels, Pat Antonetti.
Yeah.
He was in D4. We were in C4.
One of the greats. Yeah.
Oh,
big fan of Pat.
He's in 3rd ID over in. I hadn't seen him since graduation, right, or since infantry school, and I think he was with Dave Funk. Dave Funk was 4th ID, but in Iraq he was with Pat and those guys, battalion commands. But we're in Hohenfels and we both got our convoys, and we got, 16, 18 vehicles both ways. We're coming on this intersection, and I go, Antoinette's. We stop our vehicles, climb out. We're standing there having a meeting, giving them a hug, saying, hey, what's going on?
Right.
And we had like a 10-minute conversation. And if the 113s had all those horns going, we'd have been in trouble.
Right.
But it was awesome, man. And that was the last time I saw him until after like one of the reunions, like, maybe 10 or 15-year reunion. So John Bacot, God rest his soul. I'm in St. Louis International Airport, Lambert Field, catching a flight for a business meeting. I'm walking this way, and he's on the conveyor belt going the other way. And we look at each other.
I love that.
And we turn around. No, we're both on the conveyor belt. Whips, John, man, what's going on? So again, had a quick reunion there for maybe 15 minutes. And it was great. Got to catch up with him.
I was at Atlanta Airport going down an escalator, and Justin Whitney was coming up, and it was impossible. But I just said, "Hey, Whitney." He goes, "Hey." It was just like at a moment, right?
Now there's a hero from Plebe Year.
Yeah.
He was a special forces guy, and I love running into Justin.
Yeah,
those little meetings are just phenomenal. I don't know what makes our class so close. So many things. I think General Scott for 4 years, being our only soup we had, was phenomenal. I think that gelled our class because I think he was a neat guy.
Yeah.
And then when, unfortunately, the losses that we've had, Charlie Moses, Plebe Parent Weekend.
Yeah.
I love to dance, right? I love to jitterbug, do whatever. His sister name was Sally, Sally Moses, beautiful young lady. I think she was senior in high school, maybe in college. I don't remember. But I'm dancing with her on the dance floor. All of a sudden, Charlie Moses is standing next to me. What's your name? You dance with my sister, whatever. He would just give me trouble, right? Well, I worshiped that guy. He was a good dude, man.
He's another one that used to
player.
He used to cut through our company area, and for some reason we just hit it off. And we
was before, right? You got Chris Kurkowski was in my Beast, or he was in a Beast company or a Plebe company, B1.
Yeah,
and then Wayne Lockman, right?
Lockman.
We went to airborne school with Charlie and Wayne. Okay. They were field artillery guys. It was like July of 86, Yeah, July of 86. We're down there at Fort Benning. Charlie was one of the funniest guys around.
Yeah.
It was so hot. They'd have us start like at 4 a.m. And they'd say, now roll your pant legs up above your ankle, right? They'd give you that. And then Charlie would roll it up to it looked like he had knickers on. And he goes, hey, Mr. Muscle Man, pull your panties on down. You need to fix that right now. And we'd all get thrown in the gig pit. Because every day Charlie would make his pants look like knickers.
In the gig pit.
And then I think we'd all end up doing the same thing.
Yeah. In the gig pit.
Yeah. So anyway, I go through Ranger School, right?
Yeah.
And my claim to fame, and Andy Bessemer would be my witness on this probably, or a few others, but I crawled the Derby Queen. It's a little over a mile, but I made instructors.
You crawled the Derby Queen.
Yeah, I did each obstacle like 2 or 3 times, and I had to crawl it because they were trying to get me to quit.
And what earned your place in their hearts where they wanted you to quit? Because some folks would get.
I blame Tom Zoka and Peter Feeney. No, I'm just kidding. Tom Zoka got married December 28th in Michigan, or 27th.
Right. In
Grand Rapids, Michigan. Peter Feeney's on break from Ranger School. He comes to the wedding too. And Tom Zoka's mom would make these oatmeal cookies in a Tupperware bin that was about this deep. And we roomed together. I think Peter and I ate all those oatmeal cookies. Why? Peter was hungry. He only had the swamp phase left. I had the whole damn school. I was scared to death of what was coming. Well, and we'd eat dinner. And then the next day we fly to, Peter and I fly to San Francisco, San Jose for Mark Peasley's wedding at that time.
Yeah. Right.
His first wife. And so we're just eating the whole time. I show up maybe a little bloated, like maybe now, I was like John Candy and Stripes, right?
Hi, Sean.
there a movie on this?
Extra
This
pounds.
wasn't in the brochure when I signed up.
It's wedding weight.
Yeah, that's right. Now I could still run, but I was just a little pudgy. Well, the first night we get woken up like at 2:30 in the morning.
Yes.
We're out in that sawdust pit.
Yeah.
And it was lightning in the background, the big instructors on those PT stands, and it's raining. I'm going, wow, this is like a movie. Well, this redheaded E5 became my friend. You can only do so many push-ups, so many sit-ups. You're stuck in the sawdust and pit. Well, he just picked me out and just hazed me for the full city week. Well, you'd have to run, and if you drop back 2 places, you got pulled out, thrown on a truck.
Yeah.
If you dropped out twice, you got recycled.
Yeah.
Well, I would never drop back, but this guy would just harass, right? And you never knew what pace you're going. You know, you're maybe a 7-minute pace, then a 12-minute pace, and they slow you down.
Right.
You don't know how long you're doing it. It's all mental games. Now that I know that, I mean, I remember witnessing a guy throwing up in place just so they wouldn't drop back, right?
Yeah. Right.
Well,
part of the Ranger.
Evidently, on the 5-mile run, I didn't know this. The last day, the Friday, this redheaded E5 reached in to grab the back of me, and an enlisted guy, because he didn't wear rank there, from the Ranger bat, just hit him, pushed him, and the Ranger instructor went flying. Yeah. I had no idea this occurred. The next day, we do the Derby obstacle course, and so I'm about the third obstacle in. There's about 270 of us left because we had a big class.
Right.
They just wanted it. We graduated in 98 on time due to injuries and frostbite and all this stuff. But they were just abusing people.
Sure.
Well, I had a young private from the Ranger Bat, was my buddy. We get 2 obstacles in, and we had to qualify. You know what a qualify is?
I don't. I didn't have a chance to do that.
You know what a koala bear is?
Yeah, of course.
Right? So if you flip yourself upside down, feet on top, wrap your arms on the bottom of a tree.
Oh,
you look like an upside down koala bear.
That's if you fell asleep in class, they would have you do the koala. Right.
There you go. So you flip up there, and eventually gravity takes over, and you slide down.
You slide down, and it wakes you up.
And so then I get to I'm doing these obstacles over and over. My poor Ranger buddy's just getting abused, and it's my fault. Well, I get to this one. It's a slide for life with a rope. It's like 40 feet high.
Yeah.
And you shimmy down the rope feet first. I did it twice, and this is the redheaded E5. And he goes, get up there and do it again, Ranger. By this time, I was so smoked. I go, no, Sergeant, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
Because I realized, one, he didn't really care about my health and welfare at that time. Right. You know? And so I didn't do it. And he goes, start crawling. I'm like, what? Get on your face. So I started crawling to the next obstacle. Had to do that obstacle. Then I'd crawl in. He went through and told every instructor, hey, we got this dirt bag coming through. Need to get rid of him. Yeah. I make it all the way to the Weaver. It's the Weaver. You lay on your back and you go over and under these logs that get wider and wider.
Fun.
Probably 15 feet high. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I get up there. I fall off. I fell off 10 times.
Oh.
One guy fell off, separated his shoulder. They drag him off. They didn't have pads or anything.
Yeah, right.
Ross Clemens, company mate, B1. He's there. Whips, what's going on? And I can't talk. You know, all these West Pointers stop on every ring of the deal. And I go through it. And I'll never forget, Ross Clemens goes, hey, this guy holds nothing against, I think it was a guy named Cernelia, was a cow in our B1 class.
Yeah.
Who was the biggest hazer around.
Yeah.
And I decided right there I was not going to quit. Well, they talked me through each ring. This Samoan E7 kicks everyone off, climbs up on the obstacle, goes, he knew then I wasn't a dirtbag. Otherwise, why would they
step up to help me? Yeah.
So I get off of it. I make it. He goes, don't piss me off, Ranger, and make this obstacle. So I get down and I say, Sergeant, they're going to have to kill me before I quit this class. I won't quit. He goes, start crawling. I'd go to the next obstacle. So keep going on. And there's this black E6, very distinct drill sergeant voice. Yeah. I remember him distinctly. He's with this redheaded E5, and I'm at the end of the obstacle. And all I kept saying at that time, body weak, mind strong, Sergeant. And it'd make him mad. The E5 would just get pissed. Do more push. I'm doing body weak, mind strong, Sergeant. And I just kept repeating it over and over, just getting angry. He straddles me like he wants to punch me. I'm doing flutter kicks. I go, body weak, mind strong, Sergeant. And I'm smiling. I figure 8 and 4 smile. I can do. I'll just keep smiling. What the heck?
You've got
What are they going to do? Make me go to Ranger school? I'm there.
Yeah. Wow.
So the E6 dismisses me.
Yeah.
No, the E6 says, and I apologize for this crudeness, but the E6 says, Ranger, I'm going to kick you so hard, make your period start. Right? And I just remember laughing. And I go, body weak, mind strong.
Correction back in those days.
But this guy, I mean, I just remember his voice. And I remember what he looked like. Just a glimpse. He sends me on. The Ranger Red E5 wanted me to climb down this gully. I thought everything was over. Yeah. And I saw the E6 go to the Red 50. No, negative, like you're out of line. Because I couldn't crawl down this gully. I'd get hurt. Get to the bottom, it's 60-foot cargo net. I had yet to climb.
Yeah.
There were 5 of his Rangers left on the course. Again, I was about 25 people in of 280. And this is like 2.5 hours later. And I'm ending these other 4 guys were up and off. Yeah. I'm climbing with my arms hooking up. They sent Ranger instructors down to spot me.
Yeah.
But the guy at the top of the deck.
At the end of the day, they didn't want to get you hurt. Yeah.
Well, the guy at the top of the deck, just let go, Ranger. It'll be over in a second.
Yeah.
The one on top of the deal. So I finish up there. They make me low crawl on this wooden dock.
Good gravy.
Do you remember the author Leonard B. Scott? He wrote
I don't know.
Charlie Mike or Company Commander, a Vietnam book. He was the commander of the Ranger School. Huh. I get to the end of the dock, and all of a sudden, all of the Ranger instructors for Darby, these that were just there, surround me. Colonel Scott locks me up, and I'm at attention. He says, Ranger, if you ever push any of my sergeants again, physically, I will have you out of this school. You'll be working at McDonald's and just choose me up one side and down the other. You apologize to this instructor for pushing him. I looked at the redheaded E5 sergeant. I apologize for pushing you yesterday. I looked back at the colonel. He dismissed all the people. Huh. And I said, Colonel, what do you want, Ranger? With all due respect, I never touched that guy, and I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Yeah. He goes, Ranger, I know that. You carry a rucksack for the next 2 months. You're going to be fine. I'm thinking, what the hell just happened? I couldn't carry my equipment. It was like 2 or 3 hours later. I was able to talk to Phil Biggs, Lee Rudisil, and tell them what happened. We get fast forward. We finish Darby patrolling up on top of the Slide for Life, the big tall tower over the lake. Yeah. Victory Pond. Redheaded E5's running that thing. I go, Lee, I'm not going. That guy's going to. So Lee and I just kept falling to the back of the line. Yeah. It was so cold, people's hands were sticking on the aluminum ladder. So they nixed it. You still had to do log walk rope drop. Yeah. I get out to the Ranger tab. You hang under. Yeah. You state your name and your roster number. Yeah. I said Ranger Whipple, and I didn't get Whipple out. The E7, Simone Whipple, you get down here. These are the guys from the obstacle course. Yeah. Right. You get over here and start breaking ice. Well, there's a puddle that was frozen. So I had to break, with your chest, you break the ice. Yeah, there you go. Guess who walks by? The E6, the black E6. Yeah. I said, hey, Sergeant, what do you want, Ranger? My period hasn't started yet, is what I said to him. He started dying. There, boy. He started dying laughing. Oh, boy. And he goes, I knew I broke him. I knew I won. Fast forward, we have a break. At Ranger School, you get like an 8-hour break. We had a 4-hour break. Tom Graves picks us up. Kurt Anderson picks us up. Yeah. About 10 of us. Takes us to the PX. We had to write a check to get some cash. Sure. We're going to get some ice cream and stuff. I'm writing a check, and Tom goes, man, Whips, you wouldn't believe what's going around Post today. I go, what do you mean? There's a rumor that someone crawled the Darby Queen. Yeah. It's all over Post. Right? I go, well, Tom, that was me. That was me. Because you're kidding me. And I thought nothing of it, right? We we go to Mountain Phase, jump into the deserts of Utah, do this first patrol. Yeah. Right? Again, not a geography major. I thought deserts, flat. No, mountains of Utah they're mountain deserts. Whipple didn't know it. Yeah. So we jump out. The next morning, the patrol ends. All the instructors change. I'm way in the back row with W. Hey, is there Ranger Whipple? Roger that, Sergeant. Get up here. I run to the front of the deal. Yeah. I'm like, what the hell have I done now? Well, they made me morale officer at Darby, or after the mountain phase. Before we went out to on a plane ride
Yeah.
to the desert, I was named morale officer. Well, John Ponce, God bless him, he saved me with that one. At the Darby phase, we had to do the water obstacle course. It's I forget the name of it.
Right.
But we would sing "Run Around Sue," hip hip, bom daddy daddy, hip hip,
Sure.
do all that. Well, they made me morale officer, so we got 200 guys, and you got to make them laugh, or you got to have fun. So I just stood up in front of these guys out in the desert and said, "Hip hip, bom daddy daddy, hip hip," by myself. 250 guys kick in, and they start singing in the background. I sang "Run Around Sue."
Right.
Well, then the instructors, because everyone was having so much fun, the instructor said, "Whipple, you can't do that anymore." I go, "Ponce, man, I need something else." He goes, "Whips, let's do Brandy. You're a fine girl. What a good wife you will be." I go, "I don't know the words." He writes them down in his Bible, a piece of paper. I stuck it in my Ranger Bible I had, right?
Right.
And when John died, or when John's son went to West Point,
yeah,
and I'd been in touch with John during my wife's cancer,
yeah,
and his girlfriend, his fiance had cancer also, but John and I were in touch a lot, and I sent, when his son was in Beast Barracks, I sent him the original handwritten Brandy song that his dad had given me in Ranger School, and I said, "Dude, I've had this for over 38 years." 36 years.
Yeah, right. Good for
from
you.
your dad. But anyway, I get up there, this black E7. "You Ranger Whipple?" I go, "Roger that." Got a message from Fort Benning, Georgia. The Darby team says, "Drive on, Ranger, drive on." Gives me, you remember the candies you'd have at your grandparents' house?
Yeah.
Nougats with the different color candies.
Good for them for coming. Yeah.
Gave me one, Paul.
Yeah.
One piece. I open it up. I go, share it with 250. I killed that thing right there. But anyway, that was
good for them for at least coming. You're writing a book. Tell me about that.
This is a running joke.
What is it?
Body, Weak, Mind, Strong, Sergeant.
Oh, no kidding. You have a book.
No, I don't. I've got a book that's in my world. My daughter wants me to write all these stories. I put it on LinkedIn. On my LinkedIn, no one ever reads that stuff. But I put on the bottom, it says...
Wait.
No, go ahead.
This podcast is... We don't let things like that blow on by. So how big is the book? How much have you written? How much have you written of this book?
I don't know. I wrote the story about Darby Queen, that part of it in Fort Benning. But I've got other stories that I got to write down. Big Pig. That's from Germany.
That's great. Wild boars, so you write these stories, just these very short stories from your career.
And my daughter said, "Dad, you need to write all these down because I want to have them someday." So I've been writing them for her.
So run.
No one wants to hear. I want to be a motivational
speaker. Time for all of them, but run through kind of your table of contents for your book, The Story. So you have the Darby Queen. You got one in Germany. What are some other great stories you got for your book?
Listen, I'm a houseplant animals guy. All right, Body, Weak, Mind, Strong, Sergeant. Lessons learned from the Darby Queen.
Yeah.
And then just stories as an infantryman in Illinois. Morning First Sergeant. That's one of my best ones. I'll tell it to you real quick. There's a guy, First Sergeant. Can't remember. I know his name, but he just passed away about 2 years ago. It was my first field exercise right out of Ranger School.
Right.
It was a non-tactical peacetime. Nothing was tactical. The commander was getting ready to leave. So I'm up at I go to sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
Platoon sergeant says, "Sir, we're going to bivouac down." Okay, roger that. I grab my poncho liner. I lean against the nearest tree. I pull poncho liner over me.
Sure.
I just came from Ranger School. All of a sudden, he's kicking my foot. "Sir, what are you doing? Come with me." I get over the 113's got the ammo cans underneath it, tarps over it, cots.
Mechanized lifestyle, brother, right there.
This is where we sleep. I go, "Oh, okay."
I tell you what.
Anyway, the next morning, I go to the talk early. Got a fire going. It's freezing cold, raining. I get a cup of coffee in my canteen cup.
Yeah.
And back then, it was Be All You Can Be commercials. Remember that?
Sure.
And this first sergeant Vietnam vet, just a great guy. Crusty old fart.
Yeah.
He's the only one at the fire. I said, "Morning, First Sergeant. I've always wanted to say that." And he goes, F you, Lieutenant. I've always wanted to say that. He didn't say F you. He said the whole thing. We just started laughing, and we became the best of friends, man. So that's my other Captain Morning Shift.
There you go.
Let's see the other ones I got written here. Hey, Mike, where's the objective? That's the
story from earlier going around the back, which I love that story. Well, that's the Whipple maneuver.
Motor pool and an angry captain, right?
Yeah.
The guy I told you about?
Yeah.
He had his dining in, or his welcome battalion welcome. Hail and farewell. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, 3 days before this hail and farewell, he wants to go recon the local training area that we had near Illisheim.
Right.
Been raining for days. I said, sir, if we do, we need to stay on the main roads. Lieutenant, I've been in the Jeep before. I know what we're doing. We get out there, the 3 lieutenants. We didn't have cell phones.
Yeah.
Very little. I don't think we had a radio.
Right.
He high centers the Jeep. And we're stuck. We're stuck out there. I think we were able to lift it and move it or whatever. But I tell this story to his hail and farewell, his welcoming. It's the Ponderosa. You got Hoss, Hop Sing, Little Joe. I went through all the characters, and I just roast him, man. And the other lieutenants are right along with him.
This is at his farewell. He's leaving.
No, it's at his hail. He was just coming into the battalion.
Coming into the battalion, you wrote.
We were welcoming him in. So I just said, hey, I thought I had to see if this guy's got a sense of humor, right? The next day, we're in the motor pool. And my Ranger tab, I had it with white thread,
Yeah.
And I was too cheap to buy any new uniforms, right? So they're pretty faded, but it's kind of torn. He comes up in the Ranger lieutenant. He was just pissed off the night before. He goes, Lieutenant, you're out of uniform. I go, what are you talking about, sir? Well, your Ranger tabs, the thread's coming off. He walks over and he rips my Ranger tab off my shoulder. In front of the soldiers. All these soldiers are looking at me.
That's bold.
They're like, whoa, and I'm a smiler, right?
Yeah.
He takes it and he drops it in the oil drain ditch. My tab.
That's kind of.
My soldiers
I don't care.
Soldiers are looking to see if heads are going to roll or what's going to happen here. I go over to the grate. I lift it up with one hand. I scoop it and I get the most mud and oil in my Ranger tab on there. I slapped it on.
Yeah.
I said, sir, jealousy will get you nowhere. Because he quit Ranger school. He quit airborne school, right?
Oh,
and he just, and the soldiers just
went. Hold on a second now. Whip.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, you presented this gentleman as a certain way, but boy, you really you did not hit it off, brother.
But that was humor as part of an infantry battalion, right?
That's coming out of the gate strong.
Well, actually,
about his hail, then
his hail wasn't for like a month into it, so maybe we already had a little history.
Yeah. You think?
Okay, this guy, he didn't like to get dirty, right?
Yeah. No, I mean clearly you guys.
I was the only vocal lieutenant that would express, we had a good relationship. We had our good times, but but that was the funniest line I could come up with.
That's a good line. That's a good line. So you're right. I think those stories really capture your spirit. So there was 4 years in and before Desert Storm, what getting out, what was that all about? Because it sounds like you're doing
I went from XO and then I went to Scout Platoon. I extended in Germany.
Well, Scout Platoon is always a sign of someone doing well. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I was a one blocker most of my time.
I mean, you insult people, you slap Ranger tabs back on and still a one blocker.
I made that captain look good. I helped him out a lot. So here's one of the stories with him. One of my frustrations in the Army, mechanized, was inventorying a company. It'd take like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, of course. That was the worst part of being in that. Yeah.
EO and EO, whatever the heck the inventory book. They'd have one screwdriver here and a different type of screwdriver.
I remember it well, man. I remember it well.
Well, I had a soldier in the 1st platoon, my sister platoon. He came from the 82nd, and he was a supply sergeant.
Right.
Well, he was a squad, or he was a saw machine gunner in ours. And I said, hey, sir, let's move Sarasi to the supply room. No, he's a saw gunner. I go, sir, let's train another saw gunner.
Yeah.
We can have 2 if we go downrange, right? And he wouldn't do it. Well, Ed Harris takes over, and Ed Harris goes, Eric, what do you want to do? Any changes you want to make? Yeah, I want to put Sarassi down in the supply room.
Yeah.
And this happened right in front of that captain, right? We did it. We could inventory a company. But he changed the hand receipts, made them look like the 82nd Airborne did it. It was, he'd lay out a picture and everything there. But we inventoried a mechanized company within about 3 hours. Right. Because it was so organized. And that's all I was trying to do. Well, then we did really well with the Op4 missions and all that stuff we did. We did a Cavalry Cup competition where we were first in weapons proficiency. There were like 16 teams from all over 7th Corps.
Right.
That was in Vilsec, which that was an interesting place. You pull into the gates and there's like an 800-pound wild boar sitting out in the in the lobby. But no, it was. I worked with Nelson for 2 years, almost 2 years.
Okay, so you helped. So obviously,
we had a relationship.
All's well that ends well. Because Stephen Brooksy was on, and he had a relationship with a captain that ended a career.
Well, I'll give you another example, and I don't mean to do this. But
yeah, I mean, but I think
Golden contacted me 20 years after the Army.
Sure.
And he's a physical therapist. He's got 4 kids. He paints this picture. He goes, Lieutenant, I don't know if you remember, but you saved my life. I go, what are you talking about? Well, we deployed to Grafenwehr. Mm-hmm. And when you're deployed, wives don't come. Okay? Even if they're 5 miles down the road,
right? You're
out training soldiers. Well, that rule applied to everyone except the captain I told you about.
Mm-hmm.
And the driver, and he wanted to see his wife just as much. So he took him off of where Grafenwehr was and dropped him off in this road.
Uh-huh.
His wife's in the car. And it just made this soldier so mad. He came and found me. He goes, sir, I'm going to go kick his ass or whatever. He was just angry. It just went through the roof. He lost his temper. I grabbed him by the shirt, threw him up against the tent. I said, you're not going anywhere. I don't know what I said to him, but I said, you're going to stay right here.
You restrained him from his impulse.
I go,
sure.
It's not worth the fight. I will handle this. I will discuss this with the captain, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the caliber of character this guy had.
Okay.
I goes, sir, that's when you saved me in my career. You helped me out there. But
so what inspired you to get out? I mean, after that,
I went to Scout Platoon, and I learned, again, I had no experience in the military and didn't know anyone in the military. I understand now, infantry officer basic course, you learn a little bit, We learned a lot of that at West Point and everything, but it's just getting you acclimated to the active duty Army. Advanced course is to recharge your batteries,
mm-hmm.
right? Most officers that I've seen, they had a staff job at one time or another. They were in the S3 shop or S1,
right?
S2, S4, whatever, but they didn't have soldiers. When you have soldiers, it's 110%. all the time. And
sure.
Yeah. But I was 12 months rifle platoon, I think 14 months XO. And then I did like 16 months or whatever. I don't know that I extended to become a scout platoon.
Yeah.
So maybe it was another year.
Even more
every one of my assignments were with soldiers all the time.
Yeah.
Hindsight, I was just burned out. When I got out, I had no idea what's an early out. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Chemical officer was doing it. I was deployed. I was doing a reforger to where everyone was in Humvees and they had Nerf balls that described, one Nerf ball is an infantry company. This color ball is a battalion size element. We weren't out, but guess who was in their 113s? The scouts.
Right.
So they're doing these movements and
I
was like, this makes no sense. So
you burned out on it. And at the time they were encouraging us to get out.
Exactly.
So
it was I was in Berlin 3 days before the wall came down with another lieutenant, just having a blast, partying. And, but that was fun. But then I was like, I'm just going to put it in. And then they accepted it. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So that transition, I don't regret it because God's got a plan for us in our life.
Sure.
And I had my wife and daughter and just a lovely experience as a civilian. And I was in the reserves for a few years, commanded a unit here in Lincoln.
Okay.
Jerry Schwartz was in that. He was on the battalion staff at that time. But just, you do things and like Wade Yost kind of said, he had this plan
Mm-hmm.
to go 20 years and do this, and his life changed, and
Right.
you know, but no regrets. And my battalion commander, I got with him about 2 years after being with Ciba-Geigy. I was a sales rep. We met down in Leavenworth. He was down there, and all these. It was like a little reunion from 1/6 Infantry.
Sure.
And he goes, Eric, I'm going to tell you something. I'm proud of you. I go, what do you mean, sir? You've established yourself successfully in the civilian world. Many people come out of the military and feel that the world owes them something, and that's not true. The transition difficulty is you got to make your own world out there. I mean,
Sure.
there's a lot of opportunities because of our connections in that.
Let's talk about that a little bit. How did you make that transition? Obviously, when you went out to the recruiting
Yep.
process, and I see from your LinkedIn you have a long term career in pharmaceutical sales.
I've been with 2 drug companies.
Yeah.
Novartis, Ciba-Geigy, Novartis became Novartis for 12 years, and GSK for 23.
Okay. So good runs with 2 different companies, and you stayed in sales the whole time?
Yeah, unusual because there's been about 40 downsizings and restructurings and stuff.
Right.
And the industry's been
the industry's changed so much for sure.
Changed dramatically.
And you worked your way into management, no?
I did. I was a sales manager for a couple of years, covered North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska.
Okay.
And I realized doing that when my daughter walked in one day and said, she's like 3 or 4, and she goes, Dad, when you're done checking voicemail, can I talk to you?
Yeah.
I wasn't checking voicemail, but how many times do you have to say that to a kid?
Yeah.
When you go, okay, a balance has to change here.
Yeah.
And the best job in the industry is being a sales rep.
Sure.
You build relationships with doctors. You teach doctors in their own indirect way. I've sold 43 different medicines.
Really?
Those 30 years. Again, 18 company vehicles.
Yeah, you were saying.
Gas paid for, maintenance paid for. But I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about medicine.
Right.
But I met a guy at Ciba-Geigy.
Mm-hmm.
He got out of the Air Force after 5 years.
Right.
Didn't have a college degree. Went into pharmaceuticals in the mid-70s. And cardiologists would call him up for advice on certain meds, right? That's how brilliant and smart this guy was.
Sure.
And that's who I learned from.
Uh-huh.
And he taught me and the boss I had was really good. So it was the transition was, one, learning how to be by yourself.
Right.
The beauty of it was we launched a new medicine probably 3 or 4 months after I became a rep. That helps expedite your learning curve. Flew out to LA in Hollywood. They launched it. It was a nicotine patch. Help people stop smoking.
You go. Yeah.
We had to write business plans.
Huh.
I didn't go to business school. I don't know what a business plan is. Oh, I do. It's called an operations order. That's all it is.
All it is.
Who's the enemy? Competition. Who's the, I did it, and they thought
I have a spreadsheet or 2 in there, but other than that, yeah.
What's that?
You got to put a spreadsheet in there or 2, but
we got a couple spreadsheets with the numbers in that. But this was 1991 when there was very little computer use.
Yeah,
cell phones weren't big. We had little booklets that we could. And my boss goes, Eric, here's what I want you to do. I want you to figure out where your offices are for the first 6 months. Forget everything you learned in training. Just go find your offices and learn the rules. Do all this stuff. And he knew along the way I was going to become better and better. He goes, but from 12 to 18 months, you're going to sell drug because it takes a long time for doctors to build trust with you, right? But it's been a great career. GlaxoSmithKline's who I'm with now, GSK, and I've been with them for 23 years.
Did you benefit from staying in the same region such that you kind of knew the network of doctors in that region? Is that how that worked?
No, I had Western Nebraska.
Yeah.
And then 2 years into it, they transferred me. They opened a new territory in Lincoln. And what I figured out a couple of weeks into that, the Lincoln territory was what Omaha reps didn't want and what Kansas City reps didn't want.
Right.
There were all these no-see clinics, right?
Some of us made a career in finding those corners, so good for you, right? Yeah.
So I got that job, and the guy goes, hey, Eric, I got a lunch at Nebraska Orthopedic. Do you want it? Because I'm not calling on him anymore. It's going to be your office.
Yeah.
I go, yeah, I'll take it. I was still living out west. I drove in, brought in some sandwiches, met my wife that day.
Nice.
I could have easily said no to that lunch and never met her. right?
There you go. There's always.
That's what I say. There's fine lines that God guides our.
I say this in every podcast, Whips. If we don't talk about the kids, I get in trouble. So let's talk about Emily and where's she at now, and talk a little bit about
Emily. That. Emily is a school teacher.
School teacher.
Ever since she was a kindergarten, wanted to be a teacher.
Good.
Elementary was all her deal. She did at college. She played golf at college, little college, Southeast Nebraska, Bruce State, and she's going to be a teacher. Second year, she calls and says, "Dad, I want to change majors." I'm like, "Well, what's your plan?" And she wanted to be a math teacher now, but she wanted to also teach middle school. She did a practicum with some of the elementary ones. She goes, "I do not want to teach kids to read and whatever." Yeah. She's been a math teacher 5 years at a middle school, and this last year she's done high school algebra and geometry.
Okay,
she's doing really well. Lives about a mile away. Has her own house, and thankfully she bought the house before Lori passed.
Yeah, and
she was able to do a lot of mom and daughter things with her.
Yeah,
do all that stuff. Good memories there.
Yeah,
but no, it's my civilian career. I mean, Howie Curtis was been in drug repping. Tom McCann has been in pharmaceuticals for years.
Yeah, a lot of us were recruited into that. I went in a different direction, but Phil Yost. Phil Yost has done a lot of years in the industry for sure.
Yeah, Vince Trollen he's a bigwig with one of the companies, but great guy. He was with Novartis at the time. We'd run into each other at meetings and stuff. Yeah. But great guy. But no, Emily is a great kid. She's a wonderful young lady.
Good.
No significant other yet, but that's what's down the road. But she's got a lot of adopted dads, if you will.
Yeah, no kidding.
Jimmy D, Peter Feeney, all these guys, Tom Zoka. So it's fun. You need to get Zokes on here. Tom Zoka.
Yeah, we do. Actually, he Peasley sent me a picture. He and Zokes skiing.
Skiing? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Peasley. Now, what I don't know is whether or not he put him in one of those rigs and sent him down the hill without control, like he did with you.
What they did the last time they went skiing, I think somewhere in Wyoming or Montana, Tom fell and bruised his kidney. Right?
Yeah.
So Tom's in the hospital right there off the base of the ski slope, and Peaser has a picture of him and this other skiing, another classmate, and they could see Tom's hospital window. I go, that's how you show love. You continue to ski when your buddy's hurting up there.
Yeah, so, he's taking care of, but you're not gonna miss the slope.
Yeah, Peaser's fully retired now, and he's enjoying life.
Yeah.
So
what? So successful civilian career, sales. You're a talker. Amazing stories from when you were in the Army. What if you went back in time and give yourself any advice, and you could pick any time of your life at all? What advice would you give yourself?
I would say, I think just the thought of going to West Point, I didn't have a lot of, I'm like, why am I here? Type thing. These guys got names on their shirts, and I got to put a hole in my shirt to put they didn't have the magnets back then. You had to put your, I get hazed because I had a hole in my shirt.
Right.
Well, how am I not going to have a hole because I had to put a name tag on, Right. And it took them months to get me I think Peter Feeney didn't have name tags either. I don't know. But
actually, I just to add a memory, I don't think any of us did. When we all showed up, we had to write our names on our shirt.
Write our name, yeah, the Sharpie on there.
Yeah.
Well, but I would say, be yourself, and yourself is like Charlie Moses called me after Ranger School, and he was on his way to Ranger School. I don't know that he finished it, but he was field artillery heading over there. I'm getting a call from Charlie Moses, the guy I looked up to, football player, stud. And I'm like, and he wanted my advice on what do I need to do for Ranger School? What do I need to do? And I was just humbled, right?
Yeah.
Because I always looked up to everyone else, and I still do. But be confident in yourself, serve others. I think that's what West Point teaches us. Cooperate and graduate, but serve others. I never thought I'd ever teach. I've been involved in the church for a long, long time.
Okay.
Well, before I go there, I show up in Nuremberg, Germany, and the captain goes, "Hey, you play rugby?" I go, Never have, sir, but I'm willing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I started to play rugby. Show up in Nuremberg one night. John Magnus is on the other team. Kirk Gutierrez is on the other team.
I wouldn't want to go.
Don Smith.
Kirk Gutierrez, frankly.
Don Smith is on the other team.
Yeah, see, that's not good.
I walked onto the pitch or whatever they call it. I go, I'm going to die.
I want to be on that
I'm going to die tonight. I'm going to die tonight.
Donnie Smith.
Oh,
Gutierrez.
Donnie Smith,
Donnie Smith too. I said, "Oh, I want to be on that team, sir."
Yeah, I'm going to be the water boy tonight.
I don't want to be on this team. I want to be on that team, man.
Okay, after witnessing Kirk Gutierrez play on the football field and rip heads off, do I want to be on the rugby?
Scares me. He still scares me.
Thank goodness I was fast. I was a wing forward. I just ran.
Yeah.
Try not to get him to catch me, and if they kept near me, I'd throw the ball. I'd throw the rugby ball.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I've been involved in church for a long time.
Right.
And the smartest thing I've ever done is marry my wife. Right. Mm-hmm. And I tell it at the eulogy at my wife's eulogy. I did my wife's eulogy. There's probably 300 people. And the West Pointers are all sitting in the back row.
Right.
And my opening line was, I haven't cried this many tears since December 10th, 2016, when Army beat Navy for the first time in 14 years. That's my opening line. And I go, those were tears of joy.
Right.
I go, for you Cornhusker fans, that's like winning your first home game in 3 years. And they had just won it like 3 weeks before. Everyone starts dying laughing.
Right.
Well, I just go into my eulogy and I talk about dating my wife for the first 6 months. Right. The first time I asked her out, I said, hey, give me your phone number. Right. She gives it to me. She goes, hey, I've got 6 kids. I hope that doesn't change things. And straight as an arrow, she's looking me in the face. Really? You got any pictures? Well, yes, I do. And she pulls them out, all the right ages. And I'm thinking, baby, you got 6 kids and you look like that. We're going places, right? Look around. Well, she never tells me whether it's true or not. I go, well, let me know when you have a free weekend.
Right.
Well, then we get to her house. I pick her up and she goes, you want a real tour of the townhome here? Yeah, this is beautiful. She goes, well, there's the kitchen. There's the garage. There's the living room. And that right there, that's the stairway to heaven. And you're not going there. It was up to the upstairs bedroom.
Of course, yeah.
This lady had such a sense of humor, right? And so fast forward, you go through trials and tribulations. Everyone does. But when she passes, I join a grief share class at the encouragement of a couple classmates. It's a national program. Well, now after the first one, they asked me to help facilitate and be the guy that's on there. There's a couple of ladies. So now I serve others going through grief. Did my 4th class just this last fall. 23 people show up. They're dealing with every different type of grief you can think of, from a suicide to
right.
Whatever.
That's a tremendous type of service that you're doing there.
Well,
for you.
I never would have thought I would do it. And you find God always blesses you with. A personal story with Jimmy D was at the funeral. Right. And Jimmy D was at the time struggling, and we won't get into everything, but he came to Christ after the funeral via Stan Olsen. Right. And it changed his whole. God has transformed the heart of Jimmy D in my eyes. And
he shares a little bit of the story with me in person. Yeah. So. Yeah.
But it's a wonderful story, but, and if you look for a blessing out of my wife's death, there's many like that that we heard after the funeral. And I don't know how I did the eulogy, right? I was able to get through it 20, 25 minutes, and maybe it was like 30 minutes. But like this last grief share class, and the thing you learn at West Point, don't lose your sense of humor.
Sure.
Camp Buckner, we didn't know each other, that platoon, but one would play off the other during the briefings. Mm-hmm. Hey, excuse me, do the Russians have anything like this?
Right.
Does it come in blue? We would ask the dumbest questions. And, is that the 81 millimeter mortar or what? Or is it 82 millimeter? Which is it? Just to harass people and just have fun. Sense of humor gets you through some hell, right?
Sure.
You got to use it at the right places. First night at Grief Share, I didn't want to be there. 30 minutes into it, I see this video and I go, maybe I need this. And Peter Feeney, I had to get a restraining order on him because he calls me all the time, every Thursday night. Did you go? What, and he's done it for 2.5 years. Can't get rid of him.
Well, like
Well,
Bad Penny, old Feeney, right?
that's right. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to get up and walk away
Yeah.
until I saw what it was about.
Yeah.
All these people sitting there, and 23 of them, this huge class. I said, listen, Carol, I just want to make a few rules here because we have 13 weeks, 2 hours a night, every Thursday night. There's got to be some rules. Well, the rules are there is no crying in grief share. That's rule number one. And everyone looked up and started laughing. I said there would be it's like no crying in baseball.
Right.
I said it, and they started laughing. I go to the first lady, Julie, and she goes, yeah, my name's Julie, and she'd been in the previous class, and she starts crying right away. I go, evidently, Julie didn't hear the first rule of grief share. As we went around the room, Paul, everyone just sobbed. They say their name, and I go, just come back. Just show up and cry.
Yeah.
It's okay. This is a safe place. By the end of 13 weeks, this 23 group people have little groups of 4. They're hugging each other, doing all this stuff. I'm saying God has worked that this is what I'm supposed to do to help other people do this.
Yeah.
And it's through the tribulations I had with my wife.
Of course. Of course.
But you find all of our classmates. These group of guys right here. This is, I don't know if you can see it. But that's after the visitation.
Uh-huh.
Those are all our West Point guys. You know, Tom Zoka, Stan Olson, Kathleen Feeney, Julie Biggs, Shelly Zoka, Jimmy D, Lenny Novak, Peter Feeney, my buddy Clark Berner, who I lived with in Germany, ROTC guy, Peasley, Stan Olson, Tommy Graves, and Bigsy. They show up out of nowhere.
Sure. Yeah.
So, you know, we're roster number, whatever. You know, I've always thought, man, I can't believe I graduated from that place. You know, Ron Gio, orthopedic surgeon. I don't know if you knew Ron. He was an H3, I think, but he's in B1 with me. He became an orthopedic surgeon, right? Just the people you meet.
Sure.
And all the touches that people have made throughout this world.
Well, that's why we're doing this podcast.
Stuff is my message.
Yeah. Reinvigorate those connections, right? So,
it's
times
fun.
of trouble and times of grief, those connections become strong.
It is.
So we can nurture them when times are okay, right? So because it's just as powerful and important to nurture them before the unfortunate things happen. So yeah.
You know, my one of my other chapters on this book is called Big Pig, Big Pig.
Uh-huh.
And then I said, and then I have one called The Day I Saw the Enemy. It was 3 days before the wall came down.
Right.
We're up there just to party, right? We had like $1,200 between the two of us.
Right.
We had about $30 when we left 3 days later. But we couldn't go through Checkpoint Charlie that day because it was closed. There were 1 million people in the streets protesting. So we walk around to Brandenburg Gate where the Russian Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is. And here comes this Russian captain out to inspect his troops. He walks in with about 15 feet of me. I'm going, this is the first Russian I've ever seen. Besides those two standing there. That's the guy I'm supposed to hurt, you know?
Yeah.
And he stood there and stared at me. I snapped to attention. I smiled. He smiled. And he snapped a salute. I snapped a salute.
That's great.
I'm going, it's these damn politicians that want to fight. This guy wants to go have a beer, you know? Type of deal. But it was one of those unique things I had. But the Big Pig story, Hohenfels, Germany, I'm the XO. We're doing this mission. And the captain goes, Eric, I want you to set up the talk here. It's pitch black. We're blackout drive. I get my red light out. I do it. I pull him in, get all the vehicles in circle. The LTs are in the captain's armored vehicle. Our XO's vehicles down here. Pitch black. Hey, Sergeant Mahatma, let's go check the commo lines and everything.
Right.
And this is a guy from inner city Chicago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He was a commo guy. Didn't like being out in the woods at night. We stepped down. All of a sudden you hear, a big old, I throw the combat door open. I got an M16. I'm full gear. I fly into the captain's deal. I land on the mat board. And all I could say was, Big Pig, sir, Big Pig. And he's going, get the heck out of our vehicle. And I'm like, and he kicks me out, right? No sympathy.
None.
No empathy at all. I climb up on the vehicle. I screw this tactical crap. Turn on the floodlight. We turn on the floodlight. We're in the city dump
of
this training area. And there's like 20, 25 wild
just
boar.
trying to feed a
Just
little
trying to eat.
bit.
They're just having a little dinner, Scared the hell out of us, man.
For Eric Whipple, Whips, thanks so much for joining, man. It was great to catch up.
Paul, thanks for doing it. I'm not as good as Chris Bump, but I try.
We all have a stretch goal, and it's Chris Bump for most of us.
Chris Bump is the one.
Thanks, brother. We'll talk to you.
See you, Paul.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Courage Never Quits podcast, where any member of the class of 1986 who is willing to tell their story will be a guest. To get the word out and stay up to date on the latest episodes, hit the like and subscribe button. With over 900 living graduates, we have a lot of stories to tell, and you don't want to miss any of them. We'll see you in the next episode.